You ever walk into a room so dripping with money and attitude that even the air seems expensive? That was the Manhattan Hotel ballroom tonight. I showed up in the plainest ivory gown you've ever seen, no designer tag. No statement necklace. Just me and a bracelet my mom gave me when I was 12, all scuffed up in silver, barely catching the light under those fancy chandeliers. The thing is, I wasn't even trying to stand out, honestly. I was just trying to get through the night, keep my head down, and maybe make it to the dessert table without anyone noticing I'd worn flats. But that's the thing about these circles: if you don't fit the mold, you stick out like a sore thumb. And you better believe, the second I stepped in, eyes were on minute the way you'd want. Either more like they were waiting for me to trip on the carpet and embarrass myself, so they'd have something to talk about over brunch tomorrow. First up was this woman, Evelyn Carver. If her name tag and those diamond earrings were anything to go by, Woe shoved a wine glass in my face and barked, "Red wine, no ice, hurry up," like I was her server. I just smiled and said, "Sorry, I'm not working tonight," and you'd have thought I'd insulted her ancestors. She looked at me like I was gum on her shoe and snapped, "Then move along. You're making this place look cheap." Not 2 minutes later, I caught a splash of champagne in my face courtesy of the ex-wife, Veronica Lane, who hissed, "I used to be his wife. You're just a bargain bin replacement." Yeah, that happened. But let me back up a second, because that ballroom was a whole ecosystem. You had politicians working the crowd, business tycoons clinking glasses, and influencers live streaming every charitable moment like they were saving the world one selfie at a time. The banners read, "Hartwell Foundation, uplifting the future." But nobody knew the real story, that the only reason any of those scholarships for young women existed was because of the fund I started. And honestly, none of them cared to ask. I found a quiet corner, doing my best invisible act, but no luck. A guy named Charles Whitmore, real estate, the kind who thinks owning 3 penthouses makes him funny, leaned in and said, "Sweetheart, coat checks that way. You're blocking the view." People around him laughed, giving me the up and down. "I'm a guest here," I replied, and he just about doubled over. "A guest? In that dress? You must have won a raffle ticket." I could feel the heat rising up my neck, but I didn't move. IV had practice with this sort of thing, you know? Silence can be a shield, and sometimes it's sharper than words. Somewhere by the scholarship display, I spotted a young woman in a borrowed dress, hands shaking as she tried to blend in with the wallpaper. I smiled. She was one of the recipients, a kid from the Bronx, and I swear she looked like she was holding her whole future in her hands. That made the rest of it easier to swallow. Then there was Leia Prescott, a socialite in gold, trailed by people snapping her every move. She slowed down, gave me this look like I was wearing a trash bag, and said, "Honey, did you borrow that from your mom's closet? This is a gala, not a funeral." Her friends exploded into giggles. I kept my eyes on her, steady as I could, and said, "I'm here for the cause." She rolled her eyes, and that was another notch in my belt of small humiliations. Later, a group of young men by the bar started up. Trevor, one of those venture capital guys with a grin sharp enough to cut glass, hollered, "Hey, wallflower, bet you're here to clean up after us." His friends cackled. I didn't respond, just traced my bracelet and told him, "It's about the students." His laugh died down, but it didn't matter. The party rolled on. Here's where things shifted. Paul, the event director, pushed through the crowd looking like he'd seen a ghost, stopped in front of me, and said, "Madam Hartwell, we've reserved your seat at the head table." My apologies for the oversight. You could have heard a pin drop. Suddenly all those people, so quick to laugh, weren't so sure. I told him, "I'm fine here. I like the view." His face flushed, and he scurried off. People started whispering, first confusion, then suspicion. Then, out of nowhere, the most unexpected rescue came in the form of Dr. Samuel Ortiz, a university dean and one of the scholarship advisors. He approached quietly and said, "Mrs. Hartwell, the girls you funded are here tonight. They asked me to thank you." That crowd of auction table socialites went silent, jaws dropping. I just said, "They earned it." And for the first time that night, I felt a little taller. But it wasn't over. Veronica Lane, the ex, swept in like a storm in emerald silk, drawing every camera in the room. She sauntered up, smiled all teeth, and doused me in champagne, gasping theatrically, Oops. My hand slipped. I stood there, champagne dripping, and told her, "You're making a scene." For a heartbeat, the mask slipped from her face. Later, a young waiter named Daniel rushed over with a towel, probably the first person all night to treat me like a human being. I thanked him by name, watched him light up, and quietly dabbed at my face as the crowd's whispers shifted to something Nawa mix of curiosity and, maybe, a hint of respect. That's when a press showed up. Clara Nguyen, a fashion journalist, called me out as the anonymous donor behind the scholarships. The whole room held its breath. I told her, the girls are the story, not me. Suddenly, the people who'd mocked me were scrambling to remember if they'd said anything too loud. Then the twist Alexander Hartwell, my husband, and the reason half these people were in the room, entered. He crossed straight to me, knelt in front of everyone, took my hand and said, "No one has the right to touch you. You're the only woman I've ever chosen forever." You could practically hear the sound of 1,000 reputations shattering. Even then, the jeers weren't done. During dinner, Roger Langley, banker and self-styled king of the table, stood up and slurred, "Why is she still here? She's a nobody. Get her out." His voice echoed, but I just lifted my water glass, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a response. Then the MC took the stage, announced, "Tonight's gala belongs to Grace Walker, the honorary chair of the Hartwell Foundation, who personally funded every scholarship awarded tonight." The applause was deafening. For a minute, I almost believed I belonged. When a scholarship recipient, Aisha Carter, approached me to thank me for paying her tuition after her family lost everything, I told her, "You're the reason I'm here." There were tears in her eyes, and in that moment, every snide comment faded into nothing. The aftershocks were swift. Veronica was stripped of every right to the Hartwell name her social media, her image gone overnight. Evelyn Carver's husband lost Hartwell Global as a client. Their fortune took a nosedive, and she faded from the gala circuit. Clara's article about the quiet power of Grace Walker went viral, and suddenly being the woman in the wet dress meant something. That night, standing on the rooftop with Alexander's jacket over my shoulders, I watched the city lights flicker me, hair still damp, my dress heavy, but my spine straight. "I don't need to scream to prove my worth," I whispered. "I just need to show up." And he nodded, his hand firm in mine. No words needed. That's the thing about resilience, you know what I mean? Sometimes, you don't win by fighting back the way they expect you win, by refusing to be moved, by letting your presence speak when words fall flat. For everyone who's ever felt invisible, judged, or dismissed, your silence can be your power. Your story can change the room. So tell me, what do you stand on all this? Was it justice, payback, or something deeper? Drop your thoughts below, and if you've ever held your ground when the world tried to knock you down, let's hear your story too.